Hello and welcome to our continuous coverage of the Odisha train tragedy in which 261 people have died, around 900 people are injured. It was a horrific three-train collision that took place, three-train accident in Odisha's Balasore yesterday evening, the country's deadliest rail accident in more than 20 years. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting the train accident site and meet with injured people at the hospital in Cuttack. He also held a meeting with railway officials and top ministers this morning. The crash involved the Bengaluru-Howrah Superfast Express, the Shalimar-Chennai Central Coromandel Express, as well as a stationary goods train. And in fact, the accident saw one train ram so hard into another that carriages were lifted high into the air and twisted and then smashed off the tracks. Now, rescue operations continued through the night. In fact, gas cutters were used, and as many people as could be pulled out were pulled out. They finally ended around mid-morning today, and Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav visited the accident site and said a high-level committee will be set up to investigate the train crash. He did not say any reason behind the train crash, though questions are being raised about possible operational lapses that could have contributed to the tragedy. Well, let's go across to Saurabh Gupta, who joins us from the site of the train accident, and he's been there bringing you that rescue work through the night. Saurabh, you've also visited the hospital, and now you're back at the train site. Now the rescue work is over, as we understand, and the restoration is taking place. The carriages are being moved away from the railway tracks.
That's right, and it's going to be a hard task for the railway authorities because this is one of the most important routes, and this is, of course, the Chennai-Howrah main line that connects South India to Eastern India. So in that context, this route will have to be open to traffic really soon. But behind me, you can see now, of course, the railway carriages that are still on top of each other. And you can see, of course, rescue officials still trying to see anyone trapped in the middle debris. And on the other hand, on that side, you can see, of course, on that side, there's a crane that's arrived. That crane that you see in this frame, yes, this crane that you see in this frame, will of course be the crane that will actually be used to remove the coaches. You can see these two engines. Even this engine, the one in green, suffered little damage, and then of course on that side again there are several coaches that have suffered damage, but the AC coaches seem to have been in a better condition than the sleeper class coaches, from where maximum casualties are expected. Now also, yes, that casualty figure is very high. It's one of India's worst railway accidents in decades. And, top government officials, including the railway minister, was of course here. He, of course, is expected to be present when the Prime Minister arrives. No less than the Prime Minister himself is, of course, visiting this accident site. And that should give you, an idea of how bad this accident was. Also, what we know is that Mamata Banerjee, the West Bengal Chief Minister, also visited the accident site, and she held meetings with officials because her responsibility would be to repatriate passengers in hospitals or even the dead, and many of them are from West Bengal, to their homes. Of course, Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik, in whose state this accident has taken place, offered the support of his government. The ODRAF played a stellar role in the rescue operations. In fact, the Odisha government has provided every possible support required for this kind of rescue operation. It started in the evening, it went on all through the night. We arrived at 2 in the night, all through the night this went on. We were here till about 6 in the morning, and then of course came back at 8. And also we visited the hospital, where also there was utter chaos, because at that point there were still people who were looking for their loved ones, who hadn't been able to find their loved one, and that anxiety was something that we witnessed in the hospital. Also, there was someone we spoke to who narrowly escaped death. He said this was like a he was hurt on the head. He was worried about his documents, because at the end of the day, the sleeper class coaches ferry the poorest of the poor. The railways is the most affordable form of travel in India, and most people who cannot afford other forms of transport choose the railways, and their mode of transport usually is the sleeper class coaches. Now, because Most of the sleeper class coaches have been badly affected, as you can see right behind me. That is the reason why most of the casualties also would be from these coaches, and that's something that really is, again, perhaps one of the saddest parts of this accident. But it is really one of the worst accidents that, you know, one has seen in the country. 3 trains, to be precise, and if you count this engine, then perhaps a little scratch to a 4th one. But actually, these 3 trains colliding with each other, passenger trains. These were moving at high speed. And yes, the Railway Minister has ordered a high-level inquiry, but we're all now, of course, waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive here as well.
Right, and Saurabh, you know, as you were talking about what Mamata Banerjee was there and Naveen Patnaik was there earlier, Stalin has also declared one-day mourning like Naveen Patnaik has, and a team is arriving from Tamil Nadu. So several states are involved. Even the Chhattisgarh Chief Minister has offered all help. So several states are involved. And as you said, this was the general category coaches, which we've seen visuals of these coaches on a regular day and how crowded they are. And this is that summer season. Many are traveling on holiday, traveling home. And that is why the number is also so high. So all of these, the people, the families who will come to find their loved ones will require a lot of help, which is why it's necessary for officials from Bengal, from Tamil Nadu to all be there to help them in their search and whatever else they may need.
Absolutely. In fact, that is one of the reasons why, these chief ministers from other states have come here. Mamata Banerjee's visit was very clear that, she needed to analyze how much effort would be needed because, there are also, let's not forget, unidentified dead bodies at this point. So all of that will have to be looked into. And we were at, the Balasore District Hospital. But it's not just the Balasore District Hospital. Some people have gone to Jajpur, some have gone to Bhadrak on the other side. I'm told the Soro Hospital also has received cases. So it is going to be a mammoth operation to get all these people back to their homes. In fact, the person I spoke to at the hospital, what his worry was. Of course, he was traumatized by the accident. He said, I saw people die in front of me, people's limbs being cut off. But the most perhaps worrying thing for him was that there is a person who works as a construction laborer. He has his checkbook, he has his Aadhaar card. He has his documents in that bag that he could not retrieve because he passed out. And now he's worried, how will he, manage all those documents, his checkbook. So this is a real human tragedy at the end of the day. And yes, this accident will of course see a probe. But for those who've lost their loved ones, perhaps, and did not ever reach their destinations, this one is going to be a difficult one to accept. Of course, many would say, there's destiny and there's fate and all those kinds of things. But for those who've lost their loved ones, those who've still trying to who were desperately trying to find out if their loved ones were at that hospital. And imagine going from hospital to hospital after a tragedy, trying to see if your loved one has survived with that hope that perhaps they've survived. So that kind of anxiety among people, stress among people is something that we've seen all day long.
All right, Saurabh, thanks so much for joining us. Saurabh Gupta, they're reporting from the site of that train tragedy. Well, to talk more about this accident, we're now joined by Rakesh Chopra, former member of the Indian Railways Board, and Anil Tiwari, a railway expert. Thank you so much both for joining us. Extremely tragic circumstances to be speaking to you in. And, as we've been saying since the morning, one had hoped that such accidents were a thing of the past because for several years now, we've not seen such major accidents taking place. But this unfortunate tragedy taking place, we're still waiting to find out exactly what happened. Rakesh Chopra, first to you, your comments.
Firstly, my condolences to the family. It's really a tragic accident. And not only tragic, for 3 trains to collide, it's very rare. It's very, very rare. One doesn't really get to hear that is the tragedy, that is how it has come. What I find is that there is going to be a detailed inquiry that is going to determine what is going to be the cause of the accident. And as a matter of fact, already reports have started coming out that probably there was a signal failure. But nevertheless, I think it'd be very appropriate till the inquiry is over and all facts and factors have been found out, and we get to the root of the problem and understand what really transpired and what happened. Because the tragedy is very, very serious, and it should be taken down to its real root cause, and then the accountability fixed on that.
That's right, because, preliminary, what we learned about this accident from speaking to, those who were at the site, our reporter who was at the site of the accident, was that one of the passenger trains came onto the track where the goods train was. And that is where this error seems to have taken place. And we understand it was some kind of a loop, and it came onto that and crashed into the goods train, which was stationary, its carriages, bogies falling on the other track. And then the second passenger train was coming from the other side and then crashed into those bogies that were lying on the train tracks. But so that was the preliminary understanding, though right now the government saying that, we can't say anything at the moment and all aspects are being looked into.
True, but that tells a lot to us. As a matter of fact, for a train to go on the wrong track, that gives a lot of clear thought that why this happened. Now, this could be, as I feel, it could be a signaling failure. But more important, it is to determine how did the signaling failure occur. See, the signaling system is all electronics, and it is fail-proof. It's a safe proof. A lot of inbuilt checks and counter checks have been provided. So it would be interesting. That is why I said that it would be very interesting to find out from the inquiry that what really happened, what transpired. Did the signal fail? Was it a failure of the signal, or was the signal switched off and the tracks changed at the last moment? Or did this happen automatically? That means there was some defect in the circuitry that was there. So these are some facts which can only be known once the inquiry has gone through. So you see, the most important thing is the Chief Commissioner of Railway Safety's inquiry. Of railway. He's going to be heading that inquiry. It does take a little time, but it will get to the root of the problem, and we'll get to know the crux, what really happened that time.
That's right. We've seen those visuals of the Coromandel train engine right on top of the goods train. Anil Tiwari, your comments on this terrible tragedy that's taken place, a train accident involving 3 trains, and this also one of the worst accidents in the last 2 decades. And we had really hoped that these kind of, tragedies were something of the past.
I am not very much comfortable in English, so I will speak in Hindi. Actually, हाँ, देखिए ऐसा है कि हमारे देश में भी पिछले कुछ समय से जितना भी फोकस है वो एलिट क्लास के लिए है। हम लोग वंदे भारत चला रहे हैं एलिट क्लास के लिए, हम बुलेट ट्रेन को प्लान कर रहे हैं एलिट क्लास के लिए, लेकिन जो नॉर्मल और जो कॉमन पैसेंजर है उसकी सेफ्टी के लिए कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं। अभी राकेश जी ने कहा जैसा कि इसकी एक इंक्वायरी आएगी, उसके बाद पता चलेगा कि क्या कमियां थी, क्या कारण थे। इससे पहले भी बहुत एक्सीडेंट हो चुके हैं, उसमें भी बहुत से कारण सामने आए हैं। क्या उनको रेक्टिफाई किया गया है? सुरक्षा को लेके, सिक्योरिटी को लेके, अनिल काकोडकर समिति से लेके कितनी सारी कमी।
Right, we're cutting through that, now cutting across to Balasore, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached the site of the accident there at Balasore, that tragic rail accident collision that happened last evening, which has led to so far confirmed fatalities of over 260, feared much more. Many of the people in hospitals. There you have, those are the pictures that you have of the helicopter landing there. I presume that's the Prime Minister's arrival there at Balasore to visit the site of that massive train accident. Remember this accident between the 12864 Yashwantpur Howrah train, 12842 Coromandel Express from Calcutta Shalimar station to Chennai, the Yashwantpur Saram Vishweshwaraya station to Howrah, that express, and a goods train. One of the worst in our history, definitely the worst over the last 2 decades. Reuters has put out a report saying the worst train tragedy in independent India was in 1981 when a train fell into the river in Bihar where more than 800 people passed away. This magnitude, not known in modern times. Of course, investigations on for the cause of this, but most importantly at the moment about reaching out to the families, ensuring that there is support for the families, and primarily looking at those who are injured. medical support for all those who are injured, and relief efforts. Several trains have been cancelled. There you have the Prime Minister cancelling all his visits, all his appointments, visiting Balasore there, underlining the significance and the importance and the massive enormity of this human tragedy there in Balasore. So those obviously many questions will be asked about rail safety, but I think still at the moment, of course, rescue operations are over as far as recovering people who may have been trapped inside those mangled bodies. There you can see the first shots of the Prime Minister arriving there at Balasore. You saw the rail minister there early this morning. Mamta Banerjee was there today, Chief Minister of Kolkata. You got reactions coming in from Tamil Nadu, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, and the Prime Minister himself. Of course, Dharmendra Pradhan as well was there. Several senior officials there to ensure that relief and rescue efforts. Of course, the rescue efforts are over at the moment, as reported by the NDRF. People who were trapped, passengers who were trapped in the mangled bogies, were rescued. Now it's all about ensuring proper medical care and the finest possible attention to those who are injured. Several of them critically injured, over hundreds of them critically injured. There you have the Prime Minister there. Obviously, an enormous national tragedy at this day. Tamil Nadu and Odisha declaring a day's mourning there. So these images, of course, the latest coming out of Balasore. We have our reporters there, Saurabh Shukla, Manish Kumar, tracking every development there. We have reporters here in Delhi as well, following all the developments there. Several questions will be raised about rail safety, but for the moment, as I was mentioning, the focus is on the medical attention to those who are injured there and consoling the families of those who passed away in that tragic accident. Train number 12864, Yashwantpur-Howrah train, carrying about 1,200 passengers. This is a train that travels from Bangalore's Yashwantpur railway station, Sir M. Vishweshwaraya station, Yashwantpur in Bangalore, to Kolkata, largely carrying several migrant workers who come to Bangalore for a living, going back to Kolkata. And then you have the prestigious Coromandel Express, which is where all the casualties are being reported from. Train number 12842, the Coromandel Express, Shalimar station to MGR station in Chennai, the central station, what was once called the central station in Tamil Nadu, Chennai, now called Purachi Talaivar MGR railway station there. That train was reportedly carrying around 1,257 passengers, and that's the one that collided and derailed. We're still not clear about what the exact sequence of event that led to the accident. We're again looking at all those details as well. We do know that this is the train that bore the brunt of that tragedy that took place last evening. We have Vasudha Venugopal from New Delhi joining us now. Vasudha tracks the Prime Minister's office as well as the central government and has been tracking this story very closely. Vasudha, really tell us the key questions that are unanswered at this stage and what the focus of the central government is at this moment.
Well, the Railway Minister has already announced a high-level probe into this accident, and there are some mysteries that are basically arising out of this. We are told that the government, basically Railway Ministry, is also looking at some scope of a signalling error that could have happened in this accident, basically because there are 3 trains involved, and it's still, it's still quite a mystery as to how this Coromandel Express actually, which was given the signal to go on the main line, actually came to the other loop line and rammed into the goods train. So that is one mystery that has yet to be resolved. Now a high-level probe has been ordered, and we are given to understand that a thorough examination is only going to reveal what really happened. Other than that, Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has, of course, reached the site early in the morning. Dharmendra Pradhan, the other minister from Odisha, was also there. The Prime Minister has just reached the site, and And we are told that he would also be visiting hospitals in Cuttack, and he would also be meeting patients. You know, a large number of patients, around 900, have been hospitalized in different hospitals across Cuttack and Balasore. So the Prime Minister, who has held 2 different meetings in the last 2 days, will of course be meeting patients and taking stock of the entire rescue operation. The retrieval of the bodies is over now. That is the main part. Now, of course, the work on restoration of tracks has begun.
Right, Vasudha, important questions on that anti-collision device, Kavach, as it's known, which basically signals 2 passenger trains or even goods trains, if they're on the same track, to stop. There's still a little bit of lack of clarity on there being 3 tracks and how the Coromandel Express and the goods train were on the same track and how the switch lights were thrown. That's really where the questions are being asked, right? As we are looking at main focus, of course, of the victims there, those injured. We'll focus on that in a bit, but that's really the question that's being asked, right, at the moment?
Yes.
On how
yes, so basically even opposition parties like BRS and Congress have also questioned why was this Kavach not a part of this railway line. Now, if you see, a lot of deadly rail incidents have happened across eastern India. Even in 1981, the Bihar rail accident was very deadly, and it ended, we ended up losing 800 lives. That also happened in East India. This is also the coal belt. So Jharkhand, Bihar and Odisha have seen a lot of accidents. In fact, NCRB data also says that Bengal faces the 2nd highest number of rail accidents. So clearly the Kavach, which is on a trial phase, and it is being implemented in some districts on some rail lines in southern India, especially in Bidar, Ligampalli and Hyderabad. Now it is going to be implemented in the coming year, early next year, before March 2024, in Delhi, Howrah and Delhi, Mumbai rail routes. But it's going to take some time, but it is actually a very promising technology because it could reduce the burden on the drivers and could actually also ensure seamless communication in the entire rail network. But clearly with this accident, I'm sure railways would be looking at plans to execute this faster in at least some high density rail routes.
And in terms of the Prime Minister visiting there at this moment, of course, sending out the importance of how the government is seeing this massive human tragedy there, what are really the key efforts that are being made that you are aware of in terms of taking care of the passengers who are injured and reaching out to relatives of those, of all those who are stranded there and those who unfortunately lost their lives?
So whenever a disaster strikes in any part of the country, the Prime Minister has been ensuring that he is at the site within the next few hours. This also ensures that rescue operation is on track. We saw this in December 2022 last year, when the Morbi bridge collapsed and the Prime Minister was there within a few hours. So this has become a part of his work style and functioning. So he had 2 important meetings yesterday and today. Yesterday he was briefed by the Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. Incidentally, they were supposed to inaugurate the Goa Vande Bharat Express today, but that program has been postponed for now. Today morning, he was briefed by Jaya Verma, who is a senior officer in the Railway Board, and she handles operations and business. She briefed him, Home Minister Amit Shah, and a whole lot of others. Even the NDRF officials were there on what could have happened and what is the way forward. So clearly, after 2 important meetings, he is at the railway site taking stock of the situation. And let's also remember that other state governments are also involved in this because of the 3,000 odd passengers. A large number of them actually come from Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, because one train was heading to Chennai and the other one was going to Howrah. So Mamata Banerjee, the West Bengal Chief Minister, and Stalin have also sent their own delegations. CM of Odisha, Naveen Patnaik, of course, was there today morning, and he's also coordinating a lot of operations. Mamata Banerjee has been slightly critical. She was there a few hours ago, and she basically said that this incident could have happened because of some communication gaps within the railways. Now, that is, of course, for railways to clarify, and it is going to take some time for them to understand what really happened.
Right, and important here, Vasudha, as you point out, it's a multi-state operation, and the importance of the central government in keeping it coordinated between the states. And we're not talking of just the rescue and relief operations. We're talking of families. Remember, this is a massive human tragedy. Several of them in unreserved compartments there, Vasudha, and that's been one major issue with the railways. Several unreserved passengers, you don't have their phone numbers, you don't have family contacts. They go on an arduous life to earn their bread and butter from states across states. Now, especially when trains that come from Kolkata to Chennai or Bangalore, a large population of them from villages in Bihar, southern Bihar, which are close to Kolkata, they come down there to take these trains. Several from northeastern states come and take these trains. It's a huge population, and as we saw from some of those images, right, Vasudha, that would be a big concern for the central government as well, something that needs a long-term solution in terms of how we reach out to these families of migrant laborers who travel in unreserved compartments in these trains, and they're the ones who've borne the brunt of this human tragedy.
Yes, of course. See, 20 million people travel by train every day in the country, and clearly safety of these Indians is paramount. Indian Railways is, it is actually the lifeline of the country. And like the Tamil Nadu Transport Minister was saying that, there are over 350 people who had booked their tickets in the unreserved category. So it is also going to get difficult to ascertain some of the dead bodies. Now, the only good thing is the difficult part of retrieving the dead bodies over as of now. Now begins the more important task of restoration of tracks, because we realize that we understand that almost 100 trains are also stalled, and and work is happening on tracks as well. So all of this is going to be a lot of coordinated work, and a lot of efforts have to be have to take place to ensure the safety of Indians traveling by trains, because the number of Indians traveling by trains is only increasing. And while the number of train accidents have come down significantly in the last few years, the derailments have not stopped. If you look at West, they use technologies like positive train technology and lots of others, which have not probably stopped derailments completely, but the number of deaths have really come down. So we should be aspiring for that. And let's also remember that this budget, we had the highest amount, almost 2.84 lakh crores, allocated to Indian Railways. So, where is this money going? And, are we ensuring the utilization of funds is also going to be a key question that will be asked.
Right, and as you were speaking, Vasudha, we're just running those images of Prime Minister Narendra Modi there, walking along with Railway Minister as well, getting briefed of the situation and the efforts that are on. There you can see the police, you can see the crowds that are there in terms of this entire visit. So, any specific message that's coming in from the top leadership as far as this is concerned so far, Vasudha? I believe unconfirmed sources say that the divisional railway manager's report, preliminary report, could have been, may have been submitted already. Still, is there any clarity? Is there any word that's coming out of the Prime Minister's office? Is there also, just take us through all the compensation and the measures that have been announced by the central government, if you could, at this stage?
So we are just told as of now that the report is going to take some time because it needs thorough investigation. What was reassuring was the Railway Minister's words that the root cause of this incident is going to be investigated, and why this particular thing happened is also going to be found out. So that is what we know as of now. The Prime Minister is of course in Balasore now, and he is the man who's going to sit across the table with other officials and find out the reasons for this. As of now, we are also told that the possibility of a human error is not really at the top of the possibilities here, and there is a possibility of a signalling problem that could have occurred, and this is something that both Congress and TMC have also pointed out. This was the problem that happened even last year in Alipurdwar, where one train rammed into the other, but thankfully the deaths were much fewer. So that is one thing that probably we'll have to wait for.
Right, limited information at this stage. Obviously, we are just going on this live and continuing coverage. There you have it, just pointing out the Prime Minister there, along with the Railway Minister, visiting that accident site, taking stock of the situation there. You had West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee visit there earlier in the day. This early morning, Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik was there, and so was the Railway Minister, Mr. Vaishnav. They were all there at that spot. You've got massive relief operations at the moment. The rescue operations, as Vasudha is pointing out, is over. It was over a few hours ago, which means that bringing off those cutters, cutting through, removing those who are trapped inside those mangled bogies. Remember, in any rail accident, one of the worst things that happens is because of the collision and the momentum, and one doesn't obviously fathom this, because of the collision, the trains just get crumpled and passengers get stacked inside those berths. Remember, when you're in a berth and just completely get trapped inside. So usually several hours after the accident, several people trapped inside, struggle through with injuries, in critical state. So that process is over. The NDRF teams and the local teams, the fire services teams, have managed to extricate everyone who was trapped inside those compartments. Now the focus is on two aspects. One is consoling and reaching out to the families of those who died. Remember, as Vasudha pointed out, several of them are migrant laborers, and we don't have contact details. The railways usually doesn't have contact details. They travel in groups. So finding that out and reaching out to those families. We are told that all the casualties are from the Coromandel Express, which is the train coming from Kolkata towards Chennai. So several of those people in those unreserved compartments, as well as the reserved and AC compartments as well, may have suffered injuries or casualties. That will be the focus at the moment in terms of their medical help and reaching out to the families and ensuring that there is some kind of consolation for them at this very, very difficult stage. The other main focus, Vasudha, is really of clearing the tracks and restarting this line, because this is an extremely important line, which is a lifeline both for goods, services and people traveling between on the eastern coastline, the peninsular coastline. And I remember one of these, the Coromandel Express is a prestige train that travels through that coastline. So anyone traveling from Chennai to the northeast or to Kolkata or to Odisha or even to Visakhapatnam, Vijayawada, all these places this train connects. So it's an extremely important train, and that line is extremely important. So that would be another effort that the railways will be on, right, Vasudha? Anything you're hearing on that effort? Of course, as I ask you that question, we see the Prime Minister there wading through to that site of the accident. There on your screens there, Prime Minister Narendra Modi there at the site of the accident. So Vasudha, is there anything we are hearing about removal and when slowly services will be restored on that line?
So basically, the tracks, especially in east of India, have also been overused, and the trunk lines of rail routes like Howrah have not been changed or even doubled, despite the freight or traffic due to coal increasing in the last few years. So I think that is going to be an important focus. It is the largest line. I mean, Indian Railways is the largest line in the world, and there is, of course, it is of course overstressed. But when I was talking to experts, they also tell me that there is often very little time even to work on the maintenance of tracks, especially on the eastern regions of the country. So I think that is where the challenge is to ensure that the tracks are regularly maintained, and they are also sort of doubled whenever the need occurs.
Right, and Vasudha, we believe the Prime Minister will be visiting the accident site and then be visiting the hospitals where the injured are being treated at the moment. So how long is he planning to be there? Any information that you have? I understand you may not have. The information with you is also limited and sketchy, but whatever you can tell us in terms of what we expect there in the next couple of hours. There you see the Prime Minister there sitting down there, getting briefed about the massive human tragedy that unfolded there last evening and that we've been tracking for the last 20 hours non-stop. There you have it. So Vasudha, is there anything you can give about what the Prime Minister's schedule is going to be there? Any specifics, announcements that we expect, any specific actions that he's planning to take there, anything that you're hearing from your sources here?
As of now, all that information is very sketchy, but we do know this for sure that he was really, all hands at the deck. He was extremely curious and he was extremely interested to know what really happened. So that's why immediately after the accident happened, his office was the first to basically sit down and understand what could have happened. And we today, incidentally, was supposed to be the inauguration of Vande Bharat Express in Goa. So the Prime Minister did direct the cancellation of many of his programs, and he had a very important meeting in the morning, and I'm told that he was briefed thoroughly on everything that could have happened and what is the way forward. And there he is, and I'm sure he's going to be there for a few hours. He will be visiting the hospitals, which is going to be another important moment of reassurance for a lot of these families who have lost their loved ones. And he has been doing this for many years now, since he's been the Chief Minister, reaching points of disaster sites and assuring families that the government will do all that it can to make their lives a little better. So I'm sure he's going to be there for a few hours and put some of these things in order.
Medical supplies, we have been repeatedly told, Vasudha, that there's been an enormous mobilization of resources. In fact, last evening, late around 10:40, I got a message that the Chief Minister of Odisha had directed all those who can help remove and bury dead bodies as well to move into that area from the nearby areas, and in terms of sending doctors and staff all over from there. Obviously, we'll put out those numbers of all the helplines that we have. NDTV has been putting the numbers of all the helplines that's there. There are helplines in Chennai, there are helplines in Bangalore, there are helplines in Kolkata, obviously one in Balasore as well as Bhubaneswar, I'm suspecting. So all these helpline numbers are out for those who want to find information. Obviously, there are going to be several cancellations, and if you're on the eastern peninsula side and taking a train on this line anywhere, I would suspect between Visakhapatnam down till Kolkata, any train that's passing through there, you would expect cancellations or delays or termination of services at an early stage. So these are all the information that's there as we are seeing the Prime Minister there taking stock of the situation at Balasore. I'm also joined, Vasudha, at the moment by Sam Daniels, our NDTV Sam Daniel from Chennai. Sam, most of the casualties, in fact, all of the casualties we believe, at least the fatalities we believe, are from the Coromandel Express, passengers on the Coromandel Express. What's the sense you're getting at the Chennai railway station, where this train would have reached in 20 hours from the time it had an accident? It should have reached by now, had it, at the moment, had it gone on course. What's the preparations there at Chennai? Are there relatives at the station? What kind of assistance is being provided there?
A help desk with a team of railway officials has been set up there at the entrance of the Chennai Railway Central Station. But so far, officials say no family members, either in terms of injured passengers or possibly some who are yet to be traced, have come there. Which means there is a sense that most of these people, although they were destined to come to Chennai, they may not be residents of Tamil Nadu largely, but they could be workers coming from or returning from their hometown. Right. But still, the helplines are active, and a team of ministers, Udayanidhi Stalin and Shiva Shankar, besides 3 senior bureaucrats, have arrived in Odisha already. The ministers are at the accident site, and the bureaucrats are at the control center of the Odisha government, from where they are compiling details of injured passengers, missing passengers, and those who may have lost lives perhaps, so that they'll be able to coordinate with the state government back in Chennai to be able to coordinate their transport, their travel, and if any dead, to bring their mortal remains as well. And the minister, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, has said will update them on the ground situation from the accident site. And the first train bringing home the stranded passengers that left this morning from that nearby station in Odisha would arrive in Chennai around 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And another train from Chennai is leaving this evening at 7:20 to help family members or friends of those people who are injured, stranded, or missing to get back to that place. And the railways and the state government have said that they could collect the complimentary tickets at the Chennai Central Station. They don't have to pay anything, and that train will leave at 7:20. So at the moment, there's no clarity on how many people from Tamil Nadu are injured or dead. But of course, several questions are being asked in terms of rail safety, what happened to the promise of rail safety mechanism, the anti-collision system, and all those things will be asked. Of course, many are asking also whether would the railway minister offer to resign, taking moral responsibility.
Right, thanks very much, Sam. Obviously, information sketchy there. We will have to look at information of how many of those passengers were from Tamil Nadu, where their relatives are. The real task right now is reaching out to relatives. I'm sure railway officials are working overtime on that situation. Pratibha Raman joins us from Bangalore as well, who's been in touch with officials there. Obviously not much of an update from there, but I believe railway officials in the Southwestern Railway in Bangalore, Pratibha, are confirming that there are no casualties for those travelling in train number 12864, that was the Yeshwantpur-Howrah Express, and all the casualties were on the Coromandel Express, or were passengers on the Coromandel Express, Pratibha?
That's right, Veera. In fact, so far, no reports of any Kannadigas travelling in the SMVB Howrah train. And this was actually initially a train that used to start from Yeshwantpur Junction. And now they have set up a new railway station in Bangalore, which is the Sir Vishwesvaraya terminal. And there have been helplines as well as help desks that have been set up at the station. Labour Minister Santosh Lad, who has also said that he would be in charge of any kind of rescue operation of Kannadigas in the Balasore train accident, despite no reports that have really emerged so far. In fact, even the Commissioner has said that no reports of any Kannadigas death, injury or even missing reports. But yes, every kind of hunt, every kind of support, every kind of help is being lent by every person in the railway department in Bangalore.
I've seen some reports, Pratibha, which says that 1,200 passengers were on board the Sir M. Vishwesvaraya terminus, or let's call it Yeshwantpur to Howrah train, train number 12864. Is there any categorical number that officials in Bangalore railway station from Bangalore, where the train departed from, are willing to share at this stage, Pratibha?
At this stage, there have been no reports on or no clarity in terms of the numbers as well. But what we do understand from the officials is that most of the passengers who were traveling in this train were actually destination bound, and nobody who really emerged from Bangalore who had any kind of routes in Bangalore. This is what we understand so far. But then they are also waiting for any kind of clarity that will emerge in the hours to come.
Okay, thanks Pratibha there for that update. Obviously, we're tracking that story very closely, and the big moment at the big event at the moment at that enormous accident site is the Prime Minister arriving there, obviously going down to that accident site along with the Railway Minister and his entire team there, getting briefed about the situation and the relief efforts at the moment there in Balasore. We'll keep a very close track of that. If Vasudha, you're still there with us, just quickly take us through the top 3 or 4 questions that need answers at this stage. Did the Coromandel Express collide and derail, or did it derail and collide? Would that be one top question? And what was the exact sequence of events that led to this massive tragedy? These are the 2 or 3 questions that are very important, isn't it, Vasudha, at the moment for answers?
Of course. I think the most important question here is why did the Coromandel Express actually shift to the adjacent track? Railway Ministry spokespersons have been using the word fall. Now, how did this fall actually happen? That is an important, I think that is the only loophole here. We are not able to understand as to why this particular train actually comes and rams into this stationary goods train. Now, of course, if we had some sort of a kavach or a shield to prevent this kind of derailment, it could have actually alerted the driver. It has a system of alerting the driver within 5 kilometers, saying that there is a particular train on your track and you need to be careful about it. It could have also actually put in place seamless communication throughout the entire railway network. Now that kavach system, of course, was not part of this rail route. It is still not being used in India as of now. It is an expensive technology. It is also indigenous. We are developing it. It actually has a lot of hope for us, but it is going to take some time, and it will be in place only early next year is what we hear. So that is one important question as to, was there a signaling fault, or was it a human error, which Railway Ministry officials have also denied, or was it a technical glitch? Now, we will not know this. The opposition, of course, has pointed this out. They have flagged concerns with regard to usage of outdated signaling equipment. TMC and I think Congress have basically, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary has basically said that there was a problem with signaling, and this is basically usage of outdated equipment, and the Railway Ministry should have been careful about this. That is one question. The second thing is, of course, about the whole infrastructure in the eastern part of the country and on many rail lines that need, some sort of regeneration. Like I was telling you, the Howrah trunk line has to, has not been doubled for many years, and it is a very busy route. So the eastern region also needs a lot of attention. It's also the coal belt. The freight and traffic has been increasing here for many years now. So these are the two more important things. And also, of course, we need more improved technology and advanced technologies to be in place. Both US and European countries like Germany actually use a lot of technologies which basically have been able to stall the damages and deaths due to derailments, and we need to put that in place in this country. For that, we need to invest more in research and development, and which needs to happen at a faster rate.
Right, thanks there, Vasudha, obviously giving us that update. We're tracking this story very closely. Remember, as Vasudha was pointing out, there are questions raised about safety and the technical ability in terms of ensuring that there is no such collision in the future, as well as what really caused this massive human tragedy there. The Prime Minister there in Balasore. We'll keep a close track of this story, but we'll take a very short break now. When we come back, much more from Balasore in terms of news and updates.
The top rank.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
Let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
You're with our live and continuing coverage of that massive human tragedy there in Odisha. Over 260 people at the moment confirmed dead, 900 according to the Chief Secretary of Odisha injured. Several of those injured could be in critical condition there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is there at Balasore. He was at the accident site a short while ago and has just left the accident site after taking a briefing from officials on what exactly happened and what is being done to take care of those who have been admitted to various nearby hospitals there. Some, perhaps many, as I was pointing out, in a critical state. So the focus really there in Odisha at the moment in terms of medical attention for those who are injured, because the rescue operations, which is to retrieve anyone who was trapped in those mangled bogies of the Coromandel Express there, has been completed. No one is trapped there, according to the NDRF, and that's been reported, so which means the rescue operation is over. At the moment, the entire focus there in Odisha is about those who are injured, taking care of them, giving them medical help, and of course, reaching out to families of those who've died and those who are injured. That's going to be an enormously draining exercise, given that several of them who may have died and injured in that accident could be from unreserved compartment of the train, who are migrant laborers who are traveling from Kolkata to south of India in search of jobs. So they don't have contact details, there are no family members, and it's an extremely difficult task locating their families across large parts of Bihar, West Bengal, perhaps even northeastern states. The Prime Minister, we believe now, will be going across to the hospitals where the victims are at the moment to take a stock of those operations there and the resources that are available there in terms of providing medical attention to those victims. Remember, lots of doctors, lots of resources have been rushed there over the last night to ensure that there is adequate supply. We saw reports of people there coming out and donating blood as well. to ensure these high-profile visits from the Chief Minister of West Bengal. The Tamil Nadu government has sent a team for those who are Tamil-speaking, who could be trapped in that accident, as well as to ensure all those relief efforts that are on in terms of reaching out to their relatives. So the real focus at the moment that's really been the focus of all the officials as well in that area. NDTV's Manish Kumar was at the hospitals there and sent us this report a short while ago.
Right now we are in Bhadrak District Hospital here in Bhadrak town, in different hospitals. Altogether 68 injured. They have been brought. They are undergoing treatment here. We will talk to some passengers. क्या नाम है, क्या हुआ था बताइए?
ट्रेन चले बिहार से आए यहाँ, कहाँ से कैसे ये पकड़े गाड़ी कैसे ये पलटी हुआ, फिर हम तो बच के आया है।
घर वालों को पता चल गया?
हाँ, घर पता।
आपका नाम क्या है?
जितेंद्र सानी।
हाँ,
जितेंद्र सानी।
हाँ, कहाँ से कहाँ जा रहे थे?
हम लोग वहाँ शालीमार से चेन्नई के लिए जा रहे थे।
हाँ, क्या हुआ?
वही है, जगह का नाम तो मालूम नहीं है हमें। वो गाड़ी वो मालगाड़ी में इतना स्पीड में यानी ठोका है, ठोक के पलटी जा रही है। पलटी होने के बाद हम लोग कैसे कष्ट से निकले हैं, उससे कुछ निकाल तो नहीं पाए पर जान निकाल के आ गए।
आप निकले अपने से?
हाँ, निकले तो अपने से, कैसे कैसे करके अपने से निकले। बाहर आए, देखे हाल, उस टाइम हम लोग को चक्कर आ गया देख के ऐसा मुसीबत में, तो हम लोग थोड़ा बेखबर हो गए। उस टाइम वहाँ पे आदमी पहुँचा, वो लोग हम लोग को कहीं पे बैठाया, सुलाया, होश आया तो इधर लेके आए अस्पताल।
आप भी उसी ट्रेन में? क्या नाम है आपका?
हमारा महेंद्र नाम है सर।
क्या हुआ था महेंद्र जी, बताइए।
देखिए सर, हुआ ऐसा कि हम लोग तो शालीमार से बैठ के चेन्नई के लिए जा रहे थे। अचानक से गाड़ी में थोड़ा सा आवाज आया, मिनट भी नहीं लगा, गाड़ी जो है पलटी उल्टी मारने लग गया। 3-4 पलटी मारा। हम लोग भी अंदर में थे, बच्चे सारे थे, कैसे की सब थोड़ा बहुत करके कोशिश करके अपना बाहर आए। बहुत आदमी अंदर में पड़ा था, फिर पब्लिक लोग जुटे अंदर से, फिर निकाल के बाहर, फिर गया हम लोग का यहाँ लेके आए। अभी तो हम लोग ठीक ही हैं।
इलाज
चल रहा है, चोट लगा है सबको।
अब यहाँ से क्या करेंगे?
जाएंगे, वापस जाएंगे।
वापस कहाँ?
घर जाएंगे, नहीं तो जहाँ जा रहे थे वहाँ जाएंगे।
आप लोग भी इसी ट्रेन में थे? क्या नाम हुआ बताइए? कुमार साहब। कहाँ से रहने वाले?
कोलकाता था।
अच्छा, क्या हुआ तो बताइए।
वो था घर में आया था और राज्य में से काम किया था, वो आया था और रास्ते में पलटी कर दी।
आप लोग उनके
था?
क्या हुआ बताइए?
ये हुआ था, गाड़ी बहुत जोर से स्टार्ट हुआ, उस टाइम गाड़ी टकरा गया, गाड़ी से गाड़ी टूट भांग गया सर, गाड़ी सब, आदमी इतना नुकसान हो गया। सही है, कुछ नहीं।
आप लोग ट्रेन में साथ थे कि अलग? ये लोग साथ में थे, आप लोगों को कुछ नहीं हुआ? So there were a lot of people who were also in the same bogie, but they escaped unhurt. But of course, all of them are, going through. They are in a great deal of shock, and somewhere it will take some time to overcome the trauma. With cameraman Habib Ali in Bhadrak, this is Manish Kumar for NDTV.
Manish Kumar there reporting on the hospitals there and the victims and those who were injured there being taken care of. As I mentioned a short while ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed there at the site of the accident, visited the site. He took stock of the situation at the accident site, that massive site of that massive human tragedy there, and then has now, we believe, going to hospitals to see the victims, to meet some of the victims there, some of those who were injured there, and take stock of the preparations and the arrangements and the resources that are available there. NDTV Saurabh Gupta as well sent us this report from a hospital in Balasore a short while ago.
কিভাবে মানুষ ওইদিকে ছিটকে পড়েছে, ওইদিকে পড়েছে, চাপা পড়েছে, কাটা পড়েছে, এই তো দেখতেই পাচ্ছেন।
আচ্ছা, আপনি কি আপনার সাথে আর কেউ ছিল?
হ্যাঁ, আমার সাথে আমরা দুজনে ছিলাম। তারপরে একটা ব্যক্তির সঙ্গে পরিচয় হয়, গল্প করতে করতে আনন্দ করতে করতে তিনজনে মিলে আসছিলাম।
তারা সবাই ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ, তারা ডাক্তারবাবুকে জিজ্ঞেস করলাম, বলছে ওদেরকে পাঠিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে, মানে ওদের সেরকম ক্ষতি হয় না, আমি দেখেছি। হ্যাঁ, ক্ষতি হয় না।
আপনি কি দেখেছিলেন অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট হওয়ার পর? কেউ
অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট মানে ওইদিকে লোক পড়ে আছে, এইদিকে পড়ে আছে, হ্যাঁ দেখতে পেয়েছি। ওই সব দেখে মানে আমি অজ্ঞান হয়ে গেছিলাম। দিয়ে আমাকে আবার চারজন মিলে আবার যখন গাড়িতে উঠায়, তখন আমার মাথাটা এদিক দিয়ে যখন রক্ত পড়ছে, চোখটা যখন জ্বালা পোড়া করছিল, তখন আমি এবার টিপ 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 করে তাকাচ্ছি। হ্যাঁ, তাকাচ্ছি। এসব আমি দেখে মানে আমি হতভঙ্গ হয়ে গেছি, মানে আর মুখ দিয়ে কথা বের হচ্ছে না।
আপনাকে হাসপাতালে কি অ্যাম্বুলেন্সে নিয়ে আসা হয়েছে?
হ্যাঁ, ওই অ্যাম্বুলেন্সে নিয়ে আসা হয়েছে।
কখন পৌঁছেছেন
হাসপাতাল মোটামুটি আধ ঘন্টার ভিতরে পৌঁছে গেছি। পৌঁছে যাওয়া মাত্র খুব ভালো লেগেছে, ডাক্তারবাবুদের খুব ভালো ট্রিটমেন্ট, সিস্টারদেরও ভালো দেখাশোনা। হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু প্রবলেমে বলতে আমার মোবাইলটা নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে। আমি আমার মা ভাইয়ের সাথে আমি যোগাযোগ পেয়েছিলাম না, ওই জন্য খুব অতিরিক্ত টেনশনে ছিলাম কি যদি আমার একবার মা বোনদেরকে আমি বলতে পারতাম। দিয়ে খোঁজে সিম 10 জনা মোবাইলে ভরে যাকে নাম্বার পেলাম।
যদি কোনো দরকার থাকে আপনি ওনারা টিভি দেখছেন তো ওদের কি বলবেন? ওরা হয়তো টিভিতে দেখছে।
আর কি বলবো, এটা আমার দাদা এসেছে, আমার দাদার সাথে চলে যাবো।
ভয় লেগেছিল, খুব
প্রচুর ভয় ছিলাম কি আমার পাশে কেউ থেকেও নাই।
Painful comments and images there of that massive human tragedy. We'll keep track of every development there from Balasore as well as from other parts as well on terms of updates that we're receiving there. As we mentioned, Prime Minister Narendra Modi there will be visiting the victims, those injured at the hospitals. We'll take a very short break, but our live and continuing coverage of that enormous train tragedy continues here.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया।
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and centre, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and centre with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया।
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours. It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking,
Here with our live and continuing coverage of that enormous train tragedy there in Odisha's Balasore district at the Bahanaga railway station there, where this accident took place last evening, resulting in death of over 260 people at the moment confirmed and several hundreds, we believe up to 900 people injured in hospitals nearby. Saurabh Gupta, who's been tracking this story very closely there at Balasore, enormous tragedy there. Saurabh, just take us through what's happening there at the moment and also in terms of efforts and operations on in terms of taking care of those who are injured. Saurabh, if you could hear me.
That's right. You know, the Prime Minister's visit to this accident spot has just ended. In fact, yes, the Prime Minister's visit to the spot has just ended, and of course he is now flying back after having visited the spot and spoken to relief workers, rescue workers, and been briefed on what possibly could have gone wrong and what of course the railways are doing, what kind of probe has been ordered. All of those things have been briefed to the Prime Minister. In fact, the Prime Minister was there for close to half an hour at the site, and then of course he landed here in the Air Force helicopters and then of course took off in those Air Force helicopters and has returned. But you know, the extent and the enormity of the tragedy is perhaps best explained by the fact that the Prime Minister himself rushed to the accident site. And I don't remember last time when the Prime Minister has done that, even, you know, or in the immediate, days within an accident. Now, of course, I think maybe, this is, of course, something that indicates the enormity of the tragedy and how seriously this issue is being taken. Now, there are several, political lines also that have been put out. In fact, the Trinamool Congress has been pretty aggressive. In fact, Mamata Banerjee, the West Bengal Chief Minister, was also here. Before her, Naveen Patnaik, the Odisha Chief Minister, was also here. In fact, Naveen Patnaik has, provided a lot of support to the railways by providing support from the ODRAF, which is the Disaster Response Force of the state of Odisha, which is very experienced. And also after that, we had Mamata Banerjee, who came here with officials, and she has a challenging task as well, because she will have to ensure that a lot of the people who are actually from the state of West Bengal who were on the train have also now got to be sent home, or if they've perished in the accident, then their bodies have to be sent home. Look at the enormity of the tragedy. Just look at these mangled coaches. This is what remains of that train, the Coromandel Express. And then, of course, you have the Bengaluru Howrah Superfast as well, which also collided. Now, there are 3 trains involved in the collision. In fact, you can see the engine, the electric engine of the Coromandel Express having climbed onto a goods train. Such was the intensity of the collision. And of course, over 250 people have died, like you said. It's one of the worst railway collisions and most horrific tragedies in decades in India. And one of the things that's now being asked, of course, a lot of it will be answered in the probe, is that, India was making great strides in modernization of its railways, and perhaps it continues to do so with its, investment in the railways and modernization of systems, focusing on safety, security. But, accidents like these blemish that record. And that is something that perhaps, the authorities are focusing on now, because this accident is something that has led to a loss of lives, immense number, and the enormity of the tragedy, perhaps, like I said, is best explained by the fact that the Prime Minister himself immediately rushed here within in less than 24 hours of the accident.
Saurabh, it's obviously taking a enormous emotional and physical toll on you as well. You've been reporting live on this all day. Just take us through the sequence of events that led to the tragedy, if you can, because there are several unanswered questions here on how this actually happened. What are you hearing there at the ground? And if I could just quickly tell you, the sequence of events from what we understand here is that the Bengaluru-Howrah Express leaves at 10:35 a.m., possibly the day before, from Bengaluru. That crosses the Bahanagar Bazar railway station, that reaches the Bahanagar Bazar railway station, and the Coromandel Express leaves at around 3:20 p.m. from Kolkata. This is 12841, train number 12841, the Coromandel, Kolkata-Chennai Coromandel Express. That leaves at 3:20 p.m. from Kolkata, and the accident happened around 6:55 p.m. But in terms of exact location of this accident and what the sequence of events that led to it, could you take us through what you're hearing at the ground at the moment?
Absolutely, let me show you. This is the rail gate at Bahanagar Bazar, and this track where you see the work going on right now, this track is the track on which the Bengaluru-Howrah Superfast was. On that track, on that side, was where the Shalimar-Chennai Coromandel Express was. Now, the Coromandel Express derailed. It went and climbed on a goods train that was parked on a loop line on the other side. But, it also came and hit the train that was passing through this track, and that train, of course, also has gone and derailed and fallen off into that ditch, if you can see here behind me. So the train on this track, the train on that track, and then of course there's another goods train. So these are the 3 trains that actually have been affected. Passenger trains, in fact, now you can see the railways and the NDRF here at work. They're of course working very hard to sort of try and restore at least one track for railway services to resume, because remember, this is also a very, very important railway route. It connects Howrah and Chennai. It's a very busy railway route. It has a lot of important trains running on it, including a Vande Bharat Express, on which, we had traveled on that Vande Bharat just a few days ago from Puri to Howrah, which also passes through this route. So a lot of, important trains on this route, a lot of trains connecting eastern India to southern India, travel on this route. So it's a very, very important route. And yes, like I said, 3 trains, 1 spot, and of course, a disastrous result with over 250 dead. And the enormity of this tragedy, perhaps again, at the cost of repeating myself, but I think that's what explains the enormity of the tragedy, which is that the Prime Minister rushing to the accident site in less than 24 hours after the accident has occurred.
Right. No number of times that you repeat the enormity of accident, Saurabh, is enough, because this is something truly enormous in scale, something that we haven't seen. I believe the last worst railway accident that India had, 1981 in Bihar, when around 800 people died when a train plunged into a river. This ranks amongst the worst rail accidents, not just in India, around the world. But Saurabh, you were making a very important point there. And just to make sure that there is reconfirmation of how the sequence of events that you're picking up from the ground, obviously we'll wait for the railways to submit an official report on the cause. But the sequence of events you're saying is train number 12841, and correct me if I'm wrong, train number 12841, the Coromandel Express that leaves from Kolkata around 3 o'clock and goes towards Chennai, derailed first and then slammed into a goods train, and then the Yashwantpur-Howrah Express, which was crossing around the same time, also derailed after colliding with coaches of the Coromandel Express. Am I correct in this? Is that, or do you think there are still questions to be answered on this?
Yes, that's what, people who were here, eyewitnesses who were here have told us, that it was the Coromandel Express that derailed first. And then, of course, the Yashwantpur-Howrah, I beg your pardon, the, Bengaluru-Howrah superfast, not Yashwantpur. That, of course, train was arriving on this track, and there's, of course, evidence of that. If you walk down this track, where the coaches of the Coromandel Express, this is a coach of the Coromandel Express. It's supposed to be on a track on the other side, but look where it's landed up. So obviously a train that's passing at 100 kilometers per hour on this track will be affected by something like this, and that's how the other train derailed. But I can tell you now, railway officials are, really working at I must say, very impressive speeds to try and restore rail traffic, because that's priority. Right. Once the rescue operations have come to an end. Right. And this, of course, is clear that I don't think they're not, they're looking for to rescue people anytime now. But obviously, the railways are now focusing on trying to restore rail traffic on this route.
Right. We'll have to take a very short break now, Saurabh, but quickly just reconfirming that first point that you're making. Did the collision result in the derailment of the Coromandel Express, or did the Coromandel Express derail and then collide? What are you hearing? With the goods train, I meant.
Obviously, the railways have not specified that, but the sequence of events that one picks up from being here on the ground is that the Coromandel Express derailed, it then overturned, it then went and collided with the goods train. But as a result of that derailment and the impact of that first collision, some of the coaches also came this side, and that led to the Bengaluru-Howrah, superfast also being hit and derailing, and then some of the coaches going right there and falling off. So that seems to have been the exact sequence of events. At least that's what we pick up from the ground. But again, exact nature, exact sequence is something that perhaps the probe that the railways has ordered will arrive at.
Right. We'll keep a very close track of that. Thank you very much, Saurabh Gupta there. Take care of yourself as well in the midst of that enormous human tragedy. It'll take an emotional toll on anyone reporting and being there at that site. We'll take a very short break here on NDTV. When we come back, our live and continuing coverage of that massive rail tragedy in Odisha continues. Stay with us.
Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
Let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. we're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. we're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV.
With our live and continuing coverage of that massive train tragedy there in Odisha, in the Bahanaga Bazar railway station, near that where the Coromandel Express that was going from Kolkata to Chennai derailed and collided with a goods train, and then you had the the Bangalore-Howrah Express, which was passing by at that time from the Bangalore Sir M. Vishwesvaraya terminal in Baipanahalli in Bangalore to Kolkata. That train collided with it. Over 260 people dead, over 900 injured there in several hospitals. Prime Minister Narendra Modi there at the accident site and now visiting hospitals as well nearby where the injured have been taken. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, the live and continuing coverage continues here on NDTV.
The top.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
Let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views,
You're with our live and continuing coverage of that massive tragedy there in Balasore district of Odisha near the Bahanaga Bazar railway station, where the Coromandel Express, which goes from Kolkata to Chennai, derailed and collided with the Yashwantpur, the Bangalore to Kolkata train that was passing by nearby there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited the accident site, took a stock of the situation there at the accident site, at that massive accident site where the mangled bogies of both the trains and a goods train are scattered all over. Rescue operations are over at that spot, which means that those trapped in those mangled bogies have all been rescued. The focus now is on those injured who are in hospitals across the area, several critically injured. Remember, the death toll over 260 as confirmed by officials there. It could be much, much higher. Up to 900 people, we believe, are injured, and several of them in a critical state at hospitals all around there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting one of those hospitals there. Those are live pictures that are coming from Balasore district there near the accident site. We're not sure exactly which hospital that is, possibly the one at Balasore itself, which is the district headquarters. There, Prime Minister Modi reaching there, going to meet several of those who are injured. Remember, several of those injured could have been from unreserved compartments of the trains, families of migrant workers, others who are traveling from large parts in Bihar, northeast of the country, as well as West Bengal towards the south for job opportunities and a living there. There you see the Prime Minister there reaching at one of the hospitals. He'll be meeting some of those who are injured there, who are admitted. There are several hospitals in which people have been admitted. Remember, Mamata Banerjee, the West Bengal Chief Minister, has visited the accident site earlier in the day. She had raised questions about rail safety. Naveen Patnaik, Odisha Chief Minister, was there early in the morning. Truly tragic event there at Balasore. One of the worst rail accidents, not just in the last 2 decades, but in the history of independent India. One of the worst railway accidents, ranks in the world perhaps in terms of death toll and in terms of the enormity of the derailment and the collision that turned out there. Remember, over 1,200 passengers in each of the trains, we believe, are there. Large amount of casualties, primarily from the Coromandel Express, which travels from Kolkata to Chennai. Prestige train, an extremely important route there. We are still trying to determine the exact sequence of events that led to that accident. I believe we are joined by our correspondent Megha Prasad as well. Megha, thanks so much. What are you hearing in terms of sequence of events? Is there any clarity on exact timeline of how this accident took place? To Megha Prasad in a bit. Remember the train number 12841, the Coromandel Express, which usually leaves from Kolkata at 3:20 p.m. And goes towards the MGR, Purachitaraivar MGR railway station in Chennai, earlier called the Chennai Central Station, is the one train that's involved in that accident. Just recapping information for those who have been tracking this, all this we've repeatedly put out several times. The Sir M. Vishweshwaraya terminus in Bengaluru's Bayapanahalli, the other train, originated there and it goes to Kolkata. The Shalimar Chennai train and the Bengaluru Kolkata train, both cross tracks, meet around the same time at the Balasore district's Bahanaga Bazar railway station. We've been getting you field reports there. There's a goods train also that was involved in that collision there. There you see those images on your screen. Massive collision there, and on the left side of your screen you have the Prime Minister there visiting one of the hospitals. The Prime Minister was there at the accident site a short while ago to take stock of the situation. The entire focus right now is on medical assistance and ensuring enough resources and supplies for those who are injured, several of them critically injured in hospitals around the area. And the other main priority is to reach out to the families of those who have died, reunite families which are possibly separated in this massive accident in different hospitals, and ensure that there is support for the trauma that they're going through emotionally as well as physically and financially, that all families are going through at that stage, all those who were there in that train. Then after that, the priority is also to clear those tracks of those mangled debris. That's what we believe is already started in process there. You have several cranes there which will have to come and remove those trains, the bogies, those mangled bogies from those tracks to clear the track. I believe we are now joined by Megha Prasad. Megha, any update you can give us about the sequence of events that took place that led to the tragedy? We believe we're still trying to get through to our reporters who've been tirelessly covering this event since this accident and this tragedy since last evening. I'll try and get you more information as we head along. NDTV's Divya had also through a graphic plate explained how this tragedy took place and how the accident could have taken place. We'll try and play that for you in a bit. But remember, the key questions here are: how exactly did the Coromandel Express end up in that situation? Did it derail and collide with the goods train, or did a collision cause a derailment? And then how did the Yashwantpur, the Bangalore-Kolkata train, the one that's coming from Baipanahalli in Bengaluru to Kolkata, how did that collide with those mangled bogies? We do know that the train from Baipanahalli in Bengaluru to Kolkata came later and had collided on the bogies which had already scattered the track that it was on. It was train going up towards Kolkata, and the Coromandel Express was going down towards Chennai. How did the Coromandel Express bogies derail? Did it happen after the collision? So these are questions that are being asked. Is it a human error? Is it a technical fault? What about anti-collision devices, railway safety? These are very serious questions that have been asked. Let's just take a look at what NDTV's Divya has for us in terms of the sequence of events that led to this collision.
3-train collision. There you can see this train which changes tracks. Now there's just no clarity at the moment whether it changed tracks because the train was about to derail or because there was a technical glitch. You see, it changes tracks. Now when it starts to change tracks, it comes and hits this freight train, and that's where it starts to derail. It gets on top, it derails, and 5 coaches of this train derail. And because of which the other train which is coming from the other side, because of the coaches that are derailed here, about 2 coaches of this train also are derailed. The impact is felt over 17 coaches, and of course 900 people have been injured in this collision that took place, which involved these 3 trains. And the tragedy is that 260 people have died due to this collision which took place in Balasore. Do remember that train that was coming from Howrah, and the other train which was in fact, it was going towards Chennai. The other train was also coming from the opposite direction. It was coming from Bengaluru. It was going towards Howrah, and that is when that collision took place. That change of track, why did that train, the Coromandel Express train, change tracks? Was there an issue? Was it getting derailed, and which is why it changed tracks? Or was there a technical glitch which is why it changed tracks and moved in the direction of this freight train which was parked on the track? So there you can see that caused the derailment, and which is why the coaches were derailed, and therefore the oncoming train was also derailed because of this collision.
Right, remember, we are still waiting for railway officials and the district railway officials as well to submit a preliminary report which categorically details how the events happened. There is still a lack of clarity on what exactly happened there at the Bahanaga Bazar railway station, just near that Bahanaga Bazar railway station. We believe this was very close to that railway station. We've been getting all those field reports from there. The Kolkata to Chennai Coromandel Express, that's train number 12841, departs at about 3:20 p.m. from Kolkata, Shalimar station in Kolkata, and heads towards Chennai. It reaches the Bahanaga Bazar railway station around 6:55, 7 o'clock. The the Bengaluru to Kolkata train, which is one from the Sir M. Vishveshwaraya terminus in Bayapanahalli in Bengaluru. This used to originate from Yashwantpur earlier, Yashwantpur railway station earlier. Now it's been changed to the Sir M. Vishveshwaraya terminus, a newly constructed one at Bayapanahalli in Bengaluru. The train originates from there, and that train goes towards Howrah in Kolkata. Now that train leaves at about 10:35 a.m. the previous day from Bengaluru and would have been close to reaching Kolkata in about 4 hours from that station. So the passengers at the end of their journey there in that evening. Around 6:55 p.m., the Coromandel Express derails. We are still not clear at the moment, and we'll have to wait for railway officials to detail that out in terms of how exactly this sequence of events panned out. Did the Coromandel Express collide with the goods train? How did it come on the same track? Did it have to switch tracks? How did that derailment take place? And then the SMVT Bayapanahalli to Howrah train was passing by on the up track at that same time and collided into the bogies of the Coromandel Express, which are strewn out there. We have officials at the Southwestern Railway in Bengaluru who are saying that most of the injured, in fact all of the injured, are from the Coromandel Express and none of them from the Yashwantpur bound train, from the Bangalore train that departed from Bangalore were injured. We're still to confirm that from higher officials there. A team of people from Tamil Nadu, ministers, IPS officers, IAS have been sent by the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister to help people who are from Tamil Nadu in that, and others as well, at that accident. Remember, that train from Kolkata usually carries several migrant workers from northern states and northeastern states towards Chennai for work. There are also a high-profile train where several passengers who travel between Chennai and Kolkata use that as well. Same goes for the SMVT Bayapanahalli to Kolkata train as well. So we're still trying to ascertain the exact sequence of events, but at the moment, and obviously we'll have to wait for railway officials to come out with those details, these sequence of events will tell us very clearly as to what could have caused the accident. Of course, that is the post-analysis at the moment. The big focus there in Balasore district of Odisha and in other parts of Odisha as well is attending to those who are injured in that accident. About 900 people, according to the Chief Secretary of Odisha, were injured. Several of them could be critical at this stage. The Prime Minister there in Balasore as well, he's visited one of those hospitals. Those images that you see on your screen are that of the Prime Minister meeting victims at those injured at a hospital and relatives. I believe we can go across to Saurabh Gupta live from the location. Saurabh, you were detailing issues for us. Just tell us what's happening around you at the moment. What's the next course of action that's being taken there? And in terms of reaching out to relatives of those who are injured or dead, what's the update on that?
Well, at this point, really, a lot of bodies have been pulled out today, but most of those bodies have been, of those who've died in the debris in the wreckage of the train collision. Right now, with the railways, believing that most of the rescue work from inside the coaches is done, the focus is now to get back the track in service. So one of the first tracks they will get back into service is the track that's on this side. You can see, of course, the coaches on that side, and some NDRF personnel obviously are still looking for people who may be trapped inside those coaches. Obviously, chances of finding any survivors alive in that debris, in that wreckage rather, is very, very nil. But obviously, you continue till you can. And at this point, really, the railway is also now focusing on trying to get this track back in service. Because remember, this is a main line. It's the connectivity between Chennai and Kolkata, the railway connectivity. This is the main track. And you can see on the other side, if I can ask my camera person to show you, a crane has arrived. This crane is part of the operations to clear the track. Now that these coaches have gone all over the place, jumped on, climb, on top of a goods train, they need to be removed and the tracks need to be restored. So right now the focus of the railway authorities, once this search for people ends, is that to try and rescue, to try and restore railway connectivity, and that's something that the railway authorities will try and do in the shortest possible time, because the holding up trains means also a problem, and a lot of trains have been cancelled today and yesterday, given that this accident took place and the tracks was practically blocked and there was no way the trains could run. So that's the latest from Bahanaga in Balasore district. The railways are working now on a war footing to restore rail connectivity.
Saurabh, could you just take us through how far you are away from the Bahanaga Bazar railway station? What's the nearest spot where you have access to equipment, resources, hospitals, etc. from the accident spot? If you could just take us through the geographic area that you are in at the moment.
Well, about a kilometer from the national highway, there is a road that comes in, and that, of course, leads to a level crossing. And that level crossing is where Bahanaga Bazar station is. So it's 1 kilometer from the highway. But, if you go to Balasore, where the district hospital is, that's about, I think, 25 odd kilometers. Soro on the other side is nearer, but Soro has a smaller hospital. Then you have Bhadrak, which is the next big town. So nothing is nothing is within 10 kilometers. So everything is beyond 10 kilometers. So even from here, if you have to travel to the nearest hospital, it's at least 10 kilometers. The district hospital, though, is about 26, 27 kilometers away, because I did go from here to the district hospital, and it's quite a distance. And, so that is, of course, something that really can be woven to the reportage on this, tragedy, because this is not really a station that's quickly accessible, in terms that there is, of course, a motorable road, and ambulances are coming right up to the station. They're, taking away bodies from there. The cranes, the other machinery that the railways have brought in are all coming through the road. But the nearest possible urban, health center or the district hospital really is in Balasore, 728 kilometers away from. A little less than that, and then Bhadrak, which is about a little more than Balasore, perhaps.
Right, thanks very much, Saurabh. We'll keep coming back to you, and as I mentioned earlier, it is an enormous toll for those part of the rescue effort and relief effort there, the NDRF teams as well as reporters there covering that event, an enormous drain physically as well as emotionally. We'll keep coming back to you for updates on that, but thank you so much for detailing the exact geographical location, Bahanaga Bazar railway station, and from there it's about 1 kilometer from the Bahanaga. Around that same level crossing is where the accident has taken place, and from there, that's where the other hospitals around Balasore as well as in Cuttack and other places is where they've rushed all the injured there. The Prime Minister there in one of those hospitals visiting those who are injured. I believe we're joined by by NDTV's Megha Prasad as well. Megha, in terms of the exact sequence of events, there still seems to be lack of clarity. We just heard Saurabh point out that the Coromandel Express could have derailed and then hit the goods train, or did it hit the goods train and derail? And how did the exact nature of events play out in terms of this accident? Do you have any clarity on that?
Well, so before I come to that question of yours, and perhaps an explanation to that effect would be better with a diagram that the government has, the railways for their own consumption had made. We've been able to access that diagram. So perhaps in a while, we'll put that diagram up and explain to you exactly what has happened. Now, before I get to that question of yours, Veera, let me just give you a little bit of information about Prime Minister being there. We just saw visuals of him, finishing his stock-taking exercise at the site of the accident in Balasore. He flew in there. He was there briefed by the railway minister, by the other top officials of the railways who are there at the site. Dharmendra Pradhan also there, hails from Odisha. So Prime Minister was there, understood things from the technical team there. But after that, he's visiting the hospitals in Cuttack. So there are a couple of information that we need to put out. Of course, two things from the site of the accident. Prime Minister spoke to two important people. One was the Cabinet Secretary and the other the Health Minister. Prime Minister's, to them, the instruction was to ensure that the injured in various hospitals across in that area get every single help that they require in this hour of need. So they are attended to properly and completely. On the other hand, he has also given very explicit instructions to ensure that those who have lost their lives, their families, their next of kin, do not face any inconvenience when the handing over of the mortal remains happens. And that, because the number is big, and we've seen those very horrific visuals coming in through the day, it is going to be a bit of a chaotic situation because, identification of the bodies will also have to happen. So Prime Minister has spoken to these two officials because the bodies will be handed over from the mortuaries in the hospital. So the Health Minister was spoken to, and for every other logistical help, the Cabinet Secretary was spoken to. And this is what the Prime Minister has said. He said that special care must be taken to ensure that the bereaved families do not face any inconvenience and those affected keep getting the assistance they require. He has also emphasized that the whole of government approach needs to be put in place. So every department who can help in a situation like this will have to come on board. They're already on board, but perhaps, with Prime Minister's visit there, you would have more agencies being roped in to ensure that as speedily as possible, things are sorted out here. Now, having said that, let me come to the question you asked, Veera. The question is, what exactly happened? There are multiple versions that have been coming out since yesterday from experts, from officials who were there on the site, etc. But now the sources in the Railway Ministry have chosen to give out what, according to their preliminary investigation, really happened. And this is, I'll of course come back later to you with the diagram, but let me quickly make the viewers understand what has happened. Here we are talking about 3 different tracks, and this is as per the railways, the officials of the railways and their investigation. We are talking about 3 different parallel tracks. In the middle track was the Coromandel Express that was speeding at 125 km an hour. The signal was green. It was at full speed. On one of the tracks, it was the Howrah Express that was simultaneously crossing the Coromandel Express. So at the same time, both the trains were crossing each other. And on another side, it was a stationary goods train it was just there. The stationary goods train was standing on a track next to the Coromandel Express. So Coromandel is in the middle. On one side is the Howrah Express crossing. On the other side is a stationary goods train. Now Coromandel, at its speed that it was going, derails. What is the reason for the derailment? It is still to be investigated. It derails as per the railway officials. The minute it gets derailed, at that very moment, the engine and a few bogies of the Coromandel Express actually fly and hit the stationary goods train. That is how you see it on top of the goods train, the mangled area that you have seen, the engine on top of the goods train and some of the other bogies. On the other hand, the last 2 bogies of the Howrah Express were passing by the Coromandel Express when this impact happened, when this derailment happened. And then 2 of the bogies flew and hit the Howrah train, the last 2 bogies of the Howrah train that was passing by. That is how the 3 train got involved. Now, as per the railways, they are of the opinion is that the derailment has happened of only 1 train, while 3 train actually got involved because of the impact of that derailment. Right. That is their preliminary investigation. Whether Coromandel Express actually changed tracks and hit the goods train, that is an area which is still being explored, which is still being investigated. And what is the reason for this massive derailment is still unknown.
Very important, Megha. Thank you so much for bringing that clarity across. It's very important what you're pointing out, that the Coromandel Express and the other, which also explains why all the casualties are in the Coromandel, passengers from the Coromandel Express, and there are no casualties of passengers, according to at least officials in Bengaluru, of the train that left from Bengaluru, which was going towards Kolkata. When I look at the timelines on the timetable of the that's put up on the IRCT website as well, Megha, I think the Howrah-bound train, that is the SMVT Baipanahalli to Howrah train that was going in, was perhaps slightly delayed. It may not have had to cross that same time at the same stretch if it was on time. It may have been slightly delayed, was beyond its time. And the Coromandel Express, of course, only about 3-4 hours ago left from Kolkata and was heading towards Chennai. So thanks so much for that clarity. We'll keep a close track of this, Megha. You stay with us. We'll put some more of those questions to you, and perhaps you can give us clarity from what you're hearing from railway officials, as well as we will keep a track of Prime Minister's visit there to hospitals. We believe he will be visiting more hospitals as well. There he's meeting those injured in those hospitals. As Megha pointed out, the real focus and priority now is medical effort there and reaching out to relatives of those who have died and those who are injured there. We'll keep a close track of all that here on NDTV. We'll take a short break now, but our live and continuing coverage will continue after that break.
Brought to you by
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The News with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right, and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television.
यहाँ के प्रशासन के सभी अधिकारियों का, जिन्होंने जिस तरह से इस परिस्थिति में अपने पास जो भी संसाधन थे लोगों की मदद करने का प्रयास किया। मैं यहाँ के नागरिकों का भी हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूँ, क्योंकि उन्होंने इस संकट की घड़ी में चाहे ब्लड डोनेशन का काम हो, चाहे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में मदद की बात हो, जो भी उनसे बन पड़ता था करने का प्रयास किया है। खास करके इस क्षेत्र के युवकों ने रात भर मेहनत की है। मैं इस क्षेत्र के नागरिकों का भी आदरपूर्वक नमन करता हूं कि उनके सहयोग के कारण ऑपरेशन को तेज गति से आगे बढ़ा पाए। रेलवे ने अपनी पूरी शक्ति, पूरी व्यवस्थाएं रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में आगे रिलीफ के लिए और जल्द से जल्द ट्रैक रिस्टोर हो, यातायात का काम तेज गति से फिर से आए, इन तीनों दृष्टि से सुविचारित रूप से प्रयास आगे बढ़ाया है। लेकिन एक दुख की घड़ी में मैं आज स्थान पर जाकर के सारी चीजों को देख करके आया हूं। अस्पताल में भी जो घायल नागरिक थे उनसे मैंने बात की है। मेरे पास शब्द नहीं है इस वेदना को प्रकट करने के लिए। लेकिन परमात्मा हम सबको शक्ति दे कि हम जल्द से जल्द इस दुख की घड़ी से निकले। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हम इन घटनाओं से भी बहुत कुछ सीखेंगे और अपनी व्यवस्थाओं को भी और जितना नागरिकों की रक्षा को प्राथमिकता देते हुए आगे बढ़ाएंगे। दुख की घड़ी है, हम सब प्रार्थना करें इन परिजनों के लिए।
तो प्रधानमंत्री That's Prime Minister Narendra Modi there speaking at one of those hospitals which he visited the injured there. He was at the site of the accident a short while ago. The key thing Prime Minister saying, commending efforts that are being taken at that stage in terms of rescue earlier and now relief as well for those injured in that massive human tragedy there in Odisha. He said, I have no words to express my thoughts, and he said he will pray to God for strength for all to recover from this massive tragedy there. Megha Prasad still with us. Megha, take us through what you're hearing. Obviously, the priority right now there will also be to reach out to the families of those in that unreserved compartments. In every train tragedy that we've seen over the last 3 decades, the key focus has always been those who are in those unreserved compartments, because you don't have contact details reaching out to their families. They come from villages across the board. That would be a major concern and priority for the government as well.
Yeah, it would be. But you heard the Prime Minister essentially underline their priorities. And priorities are 2. Number 1, of course, is to ensure that those who've been injured get all possible help. And number 2 is this, that as far as the investigation is concerned, and if there at all is wrongdoing on whoever's part, those will be brought to book and severely punished, is what the Prime Minister said. I think the biggest takeaway from what he has just spoken to Doordarshan there after visiting the crash site and also meeting those injured at the hospital is this. This is the big information that we are, of course, now sharing, which the Prime Minister said, is that those responsible would be found out and severely punished.
Right.
So clearly that is there in the mind of the government, the way they are progressing with the investigation.
Megha,
they need to find out who was responsible for this. And this is the question that we've been asking since morning, who is to be blamed.
Megha, sorry for interrupting you. We cut live into the Prime Minister's statement there a short while after it began. Let's listen to the whole of what the Prime Minister said at that Balasore hospital. We'll play that soundbite for you again now.
और वेदना से भी परे मन को विचलित करने वाला जिन परिवारजनों को इंजरी हुई है, उनके लिए भी सरकार उनके उत्तम स्वास्थ्य के लिए कोई कोर कसर नहीं छोड़ेगी। जो परिजन हमने खोए हैं वो तो वापस नहीं ले पाएंगे, लेकिन सरकार उनके दुख में, उन परिजनों के दुख में उनके साथ है। सरकार के लिए ये घटना अत्यंत गंभीर है। हर प्रकार की जांच के निर्देश दिए गए हैं और जो भी दोषी पाया जाएगा उसको सख्त से सख्त सजा हो, उसे बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। मैं उड़ीसा सरकार का भी, यहाँ के प्रशासन के सभी अधिकारियों का, जिन्होंने जिस तरह से इस परिस्थिति में अपने पास जो भी संसाधन थे लोगों की मदद करने का प्रयास किया, मैं यहाँ के नागरिकों का भी हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूँ, क्योंकि उन्होंने इस संकट की घड़ी में, चाहे ब्लड डोनेशन का काम हो, चाहे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में मदद की बात हो, जो भी उनसे बन पड़ता था करने का प्रयास किया है। खास करके इस क्षेत्र के युवकों ने रात भर मेहनत की है। मैं इस क्षेत्र के नागरिकों का भी आदरपूर्वक नमन करता हूं कि उनके सहयोग के कारण ऑपरेशन को तेज गति से आगे बढ़ा पाए। रेलवे ने अपनी पूरी शक्ति, पूरी व्यवस्थाएं रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में आगे रिलीफ के लिए और जल्द से जल्द ट्रैक रिस्टोर हो, यातायात का काम तेज गति से फिर से आए, इन तीनों दृष्टि से सुविचारित रूप से प्रयास आगे बढ़ाया है। लेकिन एक दुख की घड़ी में मैं आज स्थान पर जाकर के सारी चीजों को देख करके आया हूं। अस्पताल में भी जो घायल नागरिक थे उनसे मैंने बात की है। मेरे पास शब्द नहीं है इस वेदना को प्रकट करने के लिए, लेकिन परमात्मा हम सबको शक्ति दे कि हम जल्द से जल्द इस दुख की घड़ी से निकले। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हम इन घटनाओं से भी बहुत कुछ सीखेंगे और अपनी व्यवस्थाओं को भी और जितना नागरिकों की रक्षा को प्राथमिकता देते हुए आगे बढ़ाएंगे। दुख की घड़ी है, हम सब प्रार्थना करें इन परिजनों के लिए।
Right, the Prime Minister there sending out a strong message that no one will be spared for a tragedy of this magnitude as expected, sending out his condolences as well as praying to God for strength for the families and others to recover from this tragedy as well. Remember, he says, I have no words to express my thoughts at this moment. We're joined now by S. Ramakrishnan from Thiruvananthapuram, a railway expert who's tracked railways very closely. Mr. Ramakrishnan, from the initial reports that you have been seeing, what one hears that the Coromandel Express was at a high speed at the Bahanaga Bazar railway station in Balasore. We're still not completely certain on whether it collided with a goods train and derailed or whether it derailed and collided. And then at the same time, the train from Bangalore to Howrah was crossing on the other track, and some bogies of the derailed Coromandel Express hit the other train, and those bogies in the other train as well derailed in this thing. The large impact of this has been on the Coromandel Express. What do you make out of the images that you've seen and reports that you've been listening to on this tragedy?
Yeah. First thing is I am Thiruvananthapuram Ramakrishnan, not Thiruvananthapuram. Okay. So that's a correction. And the second thing is, it is not very clear whether the train that is moving from Bangalore to Howrah first derailed and then on which actually the Coromandel Express hit, or the Coromandel Express derailed first and then train from Bangalore to Howrah has hit on that. Because everything has, all these things happened in within 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes time. So it is not very clear. Only the investigation will tell us the sequence of events that has happened there actually clearly. My understanding is that in the third line, the goods train was standing or moving, and some of the coaches have when they have derailed have fallen there also, and that also has created impact on that. So this kind of accident has happened around 30 years. The similar kind of accidents has happened around 30 years back in Maniambadi, if my memory is right. And there also one train has derailed and then left the coaches have fallen on the next track, and the other train came and then hit there. So this is a kind of unique accident. Normally when the derailment happens, there the matter ends, but this time the derailment happens and within a very short time the next train came and rammed it.
Right.
So
Mr. Ramakrishnan, tell us what happens in an investigation of this nature at this stage. Can you just take us step by step on how an investigation comes through? By when would we have clarity on exactly what happened? And what are the potential possibilities that could have resulted in this?
Yeah, the Railway Safety Commissioner is responsible for carrying out the investigation. To be neutral to the whole process, the Railway Safety Commissioner Office is being paid by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, not by the Railways. Okay, so they will be paid only by them, and they don't have to report to the railway board or railway ministry for that matter. They are independent body. Railway Safety Commissioner and his office is independent body, and they will carry out the investigation thoroughly, step by step, on by not only looking at the site but also doing forensic studies on the materials that are left out on the tracks. So they do the complete study, and it may take at least a month or so for them to come out with a good report.
Right.
So, and then based on which actually the cause of the reason will be known.
Okay.
The exact cause of the reason will be known.
So, would you say that the key questions right now in terms of investigating and finding out what really happened, at least to have a preliminary and cursory understanding of the sequence of events, would be that A, did the Coromandel Express derail and collide with the goods train, or did it collide and derail with it? Was there a switching? Is that possible in terms of tracks? We believe that's one of the questions that's happened. Could it have been a signal error? Would you believe that these are the three main questions that need to be answered on whether it is a human error, whether it was a technical fault, or whether it was just an accident that was caused because of some other reason?
Yeah, you are right, absolutely right. They will consider all the possibilities, even including the possibility of sabotage that might have happened, because even if you, if the rail is cut for a small distance, even for half meter or 1 meter, the train can derail, and it would have resulted in a sequence of events. So they will investigate into all aspects, starting from sabotage to the signal failure, to the human, whether the driver has jumped the signal and then passed on that. So everything will be investigated thoroughly by this railway safety commissioners, and the railway safety commissioners are capable of clearly identifying. They are well trained for this purpose, and they are capable of coming out with the real reason behind that without any ambiguity. So that is what they will do normally. Right. They will not leave anything ambiguous at the end of the investigation.
Right. They'll have to probe all angles.
It's not like a railway. It's not like. Yeah, they will put all the angles, and they will clearly say what it is. It's not like a air accident, this could have happened, that could have happened, no. Right. Here actually they will be able to do it thoroughly.
Okay. Mr. Ramakrishnan, we'll have to take a very short break in this, but thanks so much for putting those details out. Of course, there will be questions raised about the anti-collision system, the absence of it in that line, several other serious questions about railway safety itself, on whether we need a technical upgrade, which we definitely do, according to many experts on that matter. We'll keep coming back to you, Mr. Ramakrishnan, for more details on this. We'll take a very short break. Live and continuing coverage here of that tragedy continues on NDTV.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right, and center with me, Vishnu Shobh, 9 p.m. on NDTV
24/7. Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shobh, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back.
You're with our live and continuing coverage of that massive train tragedy in Odisha. Well, the focus all on Balasore at the moment in terms of what's being done to restore the tracks, reach out to the families of the victims, both the dead and also medical effort for the injured. Megha Prasad has all the updates. Megha, take us through all that's happening there in Balasore at the moment.
Right, so a couple of information which would be very useful for people who are traveling in that area and also to understand exactly what's been going on. Of course, we know that the Prime Minister has been overseeing the relief and rescue operation since last evening. From the time this accident happened, he was one of the first people to have tweeted, and it's only then we got to understand that, you know, there are many who've lost their lives because but till that time it was not clear. Now, what we know is that since yesterday, the relief and rescue operation, which was being carried out by the NDTV, by the army and the state government, is now completely over. So they have moved over. The relief and rescue is completely clear. There are no more bodies trapped inside, is what the authorities are saying. The focus is now completely shifted towards taking care of those who've been injured and they are in the hospital. So I'll get you that information. But as far as restoration of the lines are concerned, what we are being told is that, you know, there's an up line we are dealing with and a down line we are dealing with. So as far as the down line is concerned, that the railway officials are saying that it will be cleared in the next 12 hours. As far as the up line is concerned, which is badly affected, there is no time limit. At this moment, the railway officials are unable to say how long and perhaps how many days it will take for them to do that restoration completely and fully. Now, as far as the trains are concerned, the specifics are these. 58 trains have been completely cancelled. Short termination of 10 trains have happened. So essentially 68 trains stand cancelled as on today. 81 trains have been diverted. Now what the railway officials are expecting is that, once the down line begins, at least the train on that route will start moving. So that, these cancellations, the number will go down perhaps tomorrow and so on and so forth. Now, several thousand people, of course, who've been thousand people affected in the sense that these are the passengers of the trains who got cancelled or the trains who got diverted. Specific information here, the Chairman Railway Board and other important and top officials of the railways have been given the mandate by the Prime Minister to look at the injured. That's the only mandate they're dealing with. So the Chairman Railway Board is at Cuttack and in the nearby hospitals, and the General Manager of South Eastern Railway is at the Balasore hospitals and in that area. The restoration is being overseen by the Railway Minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav. Member Infra of the Railway Board is taking care with his team, is taking care of the restoration, and of course the ex-gratia 10 lakh is being given by the centre. State governments will be announcing their own, but 10 lakh to those who have lost their lives. Right,
thanks very much, Megha. Important details there that you point out in terms of trains that are delayed. Some would have been terminated before their services. We expect another 24-48 hours before there comes to a semblance of normalcy there in that area, on that very major and important line there. We'll take a very short break. Our live coverage continues of all that's coming out of Balasore and other parts on that massive tragedy. Stay with us.
Brought to you by...
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
Let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
Let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers. Part
Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. The big developing story that we are tracking and that we've been tracking all day, in fact, here has been the tragic rail accident in Odisha's Balasore district. And the latest figures that we're getting are that at least 288 people have been killed in this tragic accident and around 900 people have been injured, and many of them are critical and they're serious. Remember, those injured had been rushed to a nearby hospital in the Balasore district, and this is being seen as the country's deadliest rail accident in more than 20 years. Now, remember, the Prime Minister has visited the site of the accident, and he also visited the hospital at which those who've been injured were rushed yesterday. Remember, he took stock of the situation. He was also briefed by senior railway officials there at the accident spot. Very significantly, the Prime Minister has said that those responsible for the incident will be severely punished. Of course, the focus now is on the relief and medical help that is being provided to those injured. Remember, many of them critically ill, and they're all there at that Balasore hospital. As far as the rescue operations are concerned, remember, all night yesterday, massive rescue operations took place. Every resource was mobilized to make sure that those who were feared trapped are taken out. And we saw the NDRF teams, State Rescue Department teams on the ground, and their operations went on for the entire night and early morning today. Remember, the Prime Minister also chaired a review meeting early this morning, and he reached the spot. He reached the accident site at Balasore, and he took stock of the situation and significantly said that those behind the incident will be punished. And he also said that our prayers are with the family of the deceased.
असह्य वेदना मैं अनुभव कर रहा हूं और अनेक राज्यों के नागरिक इस यात्रा में कुछ न कुछ उन्होंने गंवाया है। जिन लोगों ने अपना जीवन खोया है, ये बहुत बड़ा दर्दनाक और वेदना से भी परे मन को विचलित करने वाला, जिन परिवारजनों को इंजरी हुई है उनके लिए भी सरकार उनके उत्तम स्वास्थ्य के लिए कोई कोर कसर नहीं छोड़ेगी। जो परिजन हमने खोए हैं वो तो वापस नहीं ले पाएंगे, लेकिन सरकार उनके दुख में, उन परिजनों के दुख में उनके साथ है। सरकार के लिए ये घटना अत्यंत गंभीर है। हर प्रकार की जांच के निर्देश दिए गए हैं और जो भी दोषी पाया जाएगा उसको सख्त से सख्त सजा हो, उसे बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। मैं उड़ीसा सरकार का भी, यहाँ के प्रशासन के सभी अधिकारियों का, जिन्होंने जिस तरह से इस परिस्थिति में अपने पास जो भी संसाधन थे लोगों की मदद करने का प्रयास किया। मैं यहाँ के नागरिकों का भी हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूँ, क्योंकि उन्होंने इस संकट की घड़ी में चाहे ब्लड डोनेशन का काम हो, चाहे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में मदद की बात हो, जो भी उनसे बन पड़ता था करने का प्रयास किया है। खास करके इस क्षेत्र के युवकों ने रात भर मेहनत की है। मैं इस क्षेत्र के नागरिकों का भी आदरपूर्वक नमन करता हूं कि उनके सहयोग के कारण ऑपरेशन को तेज गति से आगे बढ़ा पाए। रेलवे ने अपनी पूरी शक्ति, पूरी व्यवस्थाएं रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में आगे रिलीफ के लिए और जल्द से जल्द ट्रैक रिस्टोर हो, यातायात का काम तेज गति से फिर से आए, इन तीनों दृष्टि से सुविचारित रूप से प्रयास आगे बढ़ाया है। लेकिन एक दुख की घड़ी में मैं आज स्थान पर जाकर के सारी चीजों को देख करके आया हूं। अस्पताल में भी जो घायल नागरिक थे उनसे मैंने बात की है। मेरे पास शब्द नहीं है इस वेदना को प्रकट करने के लिए, लेकिन परमात्मा हम सबको शक्ति दे कि हम जल्द से जल्द इस दुख की घड़ी से निकले। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हम इन घटनाओं से भी बहुत कुछ सीखेंगे और अपनी व्यवस्थाओं को भी और जितना नागरिकों की रक्षा को प्राथमिकता देते हुए आगे बढ़ाएंगे। दुख की घड़ी है, हम सब प्रार्थना करें इन परिजनों के लिए।
रेलवे का एक सिस्टम है, कोई इंसिडेंट होने से वो लोग 15 लाख रुपया करके देता है। कितना 10 ना 15 10 देता है। अभी 10 देता है। हॉट स्टेट का जो आदमी मर गया, हॉट स्टेट तो उसको मदद करेगा। फिर हमारा स्टेट से ज्यादा है, हम भी वो परिवार को हमारा स्टेट का जो है 5 लाख करके हम देंगे। और रेलवे के साथ, गवर्नमेंट के साथ, उड़ीसा गवर्नमेंट के साथ कोऑपरेशन करके रेलवे के साथ हम पूरा काम करेंगे जब तक काम खत्म नहीं होगा।
So remember, not only the Prime Minister but also the Railways Minister was also present there. Other than that, the Chief Minister, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, was also at the spot at the accident site. So top politicians of the country really going there and taking stock of the situation. But what actually happened and what are the loopholes as far as railway safety is concerned? To talk more about that, I'm joined by Professor Anil Gupta, who is the HOD of Policy Planning of the National Institute of Disaster Management. Thanks so much, Professor Gupta, for joining us on the broadcast. My first question to you really is that now, there are larger questions on railway safety as well that are coming up, given the fact that it involved 3 trains and 288 people have been killed in this absolutely tragic accident. What do you have to say about, the vulnerability of certain sections of the railway, given the fact that, the Eastern Railways is seen particularly as vulnerable? So what are really the, if I have to ask you, what really are the top 3 loopholes, if you have to point out, as far as our railway system is concerned? Professor Gupta, I think you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So Vedant, very important point, and this is very critical as well, because India's railway network is one of the biggest railway network globally, and also if we look at India's population. So in any kind of incident, the vulnerability of people, besides the vulnerability of system, also becomes an important aspect that is witnessed by this incident. This incident has been a rare kind of incident, where 3 trains, so a very different kind of scenario. Basically, triggering event was a smaller one, but it gave rise by cascading effect to a major catastrophic kind of a scenario. If we talk about what are the areas of improvement, so I would divide in both. I would divide in two aspects. One is technological dimensions, and second is operational dimensions. So basically, we'll have to look at both the dimensions with equal weightage, because now we are talking about the high-speed trains, and we are going to transform the railway system from speed point of view. So, but if we look at the operational dimensions, so there a huge need is there for improving our capacities. Capacities in terms of not only having the electronic gadgets of monitoring and early warning, but also what is the level of the precision and operability. So basically, that is also very important. That how sound decisions are taken, and not only the decisions are taken, but also communicated very fast, and that is very important. So even a single minute or even the fraction of minute is also valuable when any kind of transport which is a high speed transport is involved. Second thing is that this incident is rare, so it also gives rise to significant lesson. Most of the time we have been focusing on natural hazards, because the most catastrophic challenges were presented by the natural disasters like cyclone, the floods, these kind of incidences, bearing the COVID-19 kind of disaster. But this has presented that no, we have to give equal focus not only to natural disasters, but these kind of technical hazards, where in fact we say that our standard should look at the zero tolerance kind of things.
Right, and
so
Professor
this is
Gupta,
the
if you can also talk about the likely causes of this particular rail accident, because as you also rightly pointed out, it's a very rare accident involving 3 trains, a goods train and 2 passenger trains. What could have been the likely cause of this particular accident?
See, it would not be very appropriate to give a final kind of a verdict that what has been a final cause, because the inquiry has already been commissioned, the probing has already started, and probing will come out with the real cause. And I think the railway administration is going to look at this issue very, very seriously. At prima facie, what appears, and that has been explained by many people also, that the derailment, and then the another train coming on the nearby track, and the third train that was parked. So basically, the three trains were part of this in creating this scenario. And since the train was a high-speed train, so that also added to the risk. So basically, when we are moving from the conventional system to a more precise system of our efficiency.
Right, Professor Gupta, and that
see
point
at
you were making
many
about,
angles.
the likely cause of this particular rail accident. Of course, a probe is underway, and the Railway Ministry has also assured that they will come up with a report with the likely cause of the rail accident. Thanks so much, Professor Gupta, for joining us on the broadcast. Moving now, our focus on NDTV really is on the human cost of the rail accident, the hundreds of people who've been killed and their families. Now, remember, it's not just the 288 who've been killed, but also the people who are in hospitals, many of them critically injured. My colleague Manish spoke to some of them at the Bhadrak hospital. Take a look.
Right now, we are in Bhadrak District Hospital here in Bhadrak town, in different hospitals. Altogether, 68 injured. They have been brought. They are undergoing treatment here. We will talk to some passengers. क्या नाम है, क्या हुआ था, बताइए.
ट्रेन चले बिहार से आए यहाँ से कैसे पकड़े गाड़ी कैसे पलटी हुआ, फिर हम तो बच के आया है.
घर वालों को पता चल गया.
हाँ, घर पता.
आपका नाम क्या है?
जितेंद्र सानी.
हाँ,
जितेंद्र सानी.
हाँ, कहाँ से कहाँ जा रहे थे?
हम लोग वहाँ शालीमार से चेन्नई के लिए जा रहे थे.
हाँ, क्या हुआ?
वही है, जगह का नाम तो मालूम नहीं है हमें. वो गाड़ी वो माल बोगी में इतना स्पीड में यानी ठोका है, ठोक के पलटी जा रही है। पलटी होने के बाद हम लोग कैसे कष्ट से निकले हैं उससे, कुछ निकाल तो नहीं पाए पर जान निकाल के आ गए।
आप निकले अपने से?
हाँ, निकले तो अपने से, कैसे कैसे करके अपने से निकले, बाहर आए, देखे हाल। उस टाइम हम लोग को चक्कर आ गया देख के ऐसा मुसीबत में, तो हम लोग थोड़ा बेखबर हो गए। उस टाइम वहाँ पे आदमी पहुँचा, वो लोग हम लोग को कहीं पे बैठाया, सुलाया, होश आया तो इधर लेके आए अस्पताल।
आप भी उसी ट्रेन में? क्या नाम है आपका?
हमारा महेंद्र नाम है सर।
क्या हुआ था महेंद्र जी, बताइए।
देखिए सर, हुआ ऐसा कि हम लोग तो शालीमार से बैठ के चेन्नई के लिए जा रहे थे। अचानक से गाड़ी में थोड़ा सा आवाज आया, मिनट भी नहीं लगा, गाड़ी जो है पलटी उल्टी मारने लग गया। 3-4 पलटी मारा। हम लोग भी अंदर में थे, बच्चे उच्चे सारे थे, कैसे कैसे की सब थोड़ा बहुत करके कोशिश करके अपना बाहर आए। बहुत आदमी अंदर में पड़ा था, फिर पब्लिक लोग जुटे अंदर से, फिर निकाल के बाहर, फिर गया हम लोग का यहाँ लेके आए। अभी तो हम लोग ठीक ही हैं,
इलाज
चल रहा है, चोट उट लगा है सबको।
अब यहाँ से क्या करेंगे?
जाएंगे, वापस जाएंगे।
वापस कहाँ?
घर जाएंगे, नहीं तो जहाँ जा रहे थे वहाँ जाएंगे।
आप लोग भी इसी ट्रेन में थे? क्या नाम हुआ बताइए? कुमार साहब। कहाँ के रहने वाले?
कोलकाता था।
अच्छा, क्या हुआ तो बताइए।
वो था घर में आया था और राज्य में से काम किया था, वो आया था और रास्ते में पलटी कर दिया।
आप लोग उनके
था।
क्या हुआ बताइए?
ये हुआ था, गाड़ी बहुत जोर से स्टार्ट हुआ, उस टाइम गाड़ी टकरा गया, गाड़ी से गाड़ी टूट भांग गया सर, गाड़ी सब आदमी इतना नुकसान हो गया। सही है, कुछ नहीं।
आप लोग ट्रेन में साथ थे कि अलग? ये लोग साथ में थे, आप लोगों को कुछ नहीं हुआ? So there were a lot of people who were also in the same bogie, but they escaped unhurt. But of course, all of them are, going through. They are in a great deal of shock, and somewhere it will take some time to overcome the trauma. With cameraman Habib Ali in Bhadrak, this is Manish Kumar for NDTV.
So the entire focus right now is to provide medical aid to all those seriously injured. But the fact is that hundreds have lost their lives and their families torn apart in this tragic incident. We'll continue to track all the latest as far as this incident is concerned. And on the other side of the break, we'll also get you how the sequence of events actually played out, how this accident actually took place. Time for a short break. Be right back.
The top.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया।
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. we're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
Debates are essential not just for journalism but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 23 years old, but young at 23.
इस इनिशिएटिव को मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं कि सच को सच के रूप में पेश करने का उन्होंने साहस दिखाया.
So let us begin the big fight.
This is NDTV. No noise, no shouting, and most importantly, no lies. Our lead story tonight. Big international story. India is closely watching it. News that informs and inspires.
The news with Sonia Singh. Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
The only side we're on is yours.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
In a deeply polarized world, where space for disagreement is shrinking, where take it or leave it defines discourse, we take a step back. A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center, conversations that get to the core of the debate. Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom.
Welcome back. The big story we've been tracking all day today on NDTV, the horrific tragedy, the rail accident in Odisha's Balasore district. Remember, it involved 3 trains. One, of course, was a goods train and 2 others were passenger trains. And various versions now coming out of what actually happened as far as this particular crash is concerned, because an extremely rare accident given the fact that 3 trains were involved. But now the preliminary probe report that has come out, that says that the signal was given and taken off for the up main line for train number 12841. Now this is the Chennai Coromandel Express. Now, this train entered the loop line, dashed with the goods train and derailed. And in the meantime, train number 12864, which is the Yashwantpur-Havra Express, that passed through the down main line and 2 of its coaches derailed and capsized. This is what the preliminary probe report has said. But the eyewitnesses' account, that is entirely different. That is a separate version. We tried to actually decode it for you as to how the exact sequence of event played out. Divya has this report.
3-train collision. There you can see this train which changes tracks. Now there's just no clarity at the moment whether it changed tracks because the train was about to derail or because there was a technical glitch. You see, it changes tracks. Now when it starts to change tracks, it comes and hits this freight train, and that's where it starts to derail. It gets on top, it derails, and 5 coaches of this train derail. And because of which the other train which is coming from the other side, because of the coaches that are derailed here, about 2 coaches of this train also are derailed. The impact is felt over 17 coaches, and of course 900 people have been injured in this collision that took place, which involved these 3 trains. And the tragedy is that 260 people have died due to this collision which took place in Balasore. Do remember that train that was coming from Howrah, and the other train which was in fact it was going towards Chennai. The other train was also coming from the opposite direction. It was coming from Bengaluru. It was going towards Howrah, and that is when that collision took place. That change of track, why did that train, the Coromandel Express train, change tracks? Was there an issue? Was it getting derailed and which is why it changed tracks? Or was there a technical glitch which is why it changed tracks and moved in the direction of this freight train which was parked on the track? So there you can see that caused a derailment, and which is why the coaches were derailed, and therefore the oncoming train was also derailed because of this collision.
So, well, as Divya was pointing out in that report as well, it's still, yet to be ascertained as to why the train got derailed and entered the loop line. But what do we actually stand to learn from this absolutely tragic incident? What are the systems that should be in place to prevent any such future accidents as far as railways are concerned? Remember, there's also a lot of discussion now on Kavach, or the shield, the anti-collision system that should be in place to make sure that the train driver is actually alerted to any such mishap well in advance. Now, Vasudha is joining us live with all the possible options that are there before the government to make sure that no such collisions happen in the future. Vasudha, over to you for that.
So could the Kavach have prevented the Odisha train accident, and why did we not have the much talked about anti-collision system? So nearly 20 million people in the country travel by trains every day, and Indian Railways is truly the lifeline of this country. And when there is no denying that rail accidents have only come down in the past few years, what happened in Balasore actually shows that a lot more needs to be done when it comes to the safety of passengers. So I was looking at some RTI findings from last year, and a major reason for train accidents seems to be derailments, and these happen due to many reasons, including technical glitches, human error, overused tracks, and most importantly, outdated signaling equipment. This is something that the opposition has also talked about. But there are broad measures that we could be taking, that the government could be initiating, the Indian Railways could be putting in place to at least prevent such collisions in future, or at least ensure that even if derailments happen, there is no loss of life. First is to start with improving the signaling technology. Now, the Railway Ministry has already ordered a probe into what might have caused this crash. And while this is going to take some time, there are primary observations that there are multiple versions to how this accident could have happened. And of course, we will get to know only when the probe report comes out. Now, was it a technical glitch, or was it a human error, or was it a signaling failure? This is something that we need to wait for. But the most important question here is, don't we need better technologies to prevent collisions? And there is this Kavach that the government is already talking about. Now, the Railway Ministry has been in the process of installing an anti-collision system. It's called Kavach across the country. Now, what does a Kavach do? It basically alerts the driver when a train jumps a signal, which is, probably the most important cause of train collisions. Now, railway officials are telling us that it is yet to be installed on this line. The system can alert the train driver. It can also apply brakes automatically and when it is activated, and basically tell you stop all trains within 5 kilometers radius, and also take care of the adjacent tracks. So it reduces the burden on drivers and also helps them identify the risks that is ahead of them. When Ashwini Vaishnaw, the railway minister, said that there is a possibility of just one error in 10,000 years, it got a lot of Indians excited, and that is why this technology is being awaited. Now, this is already in a trial phase in some parts of southern India, including Bidar and Namapalli and Ligampalli, which is next to Hyderabad. It is going to take some time to come to other parts of the country. We are told that early next year is when we can expect the same technology in Delhi, Howrah and Delhi, Mumbai rail routes. But with what happened in Balasore yesterday, we are also being told that there could be some sort of fast tracking of this project. And we also need these systems faster on high density routes to ensure safer operations. The third more important thing here is also, does our aging infrastructure need more attention? Now, when we look at our infrastructure in railways, it is a very large network and there are faults in tracks, there are maintenance issues, and we need better implementation of advanced technologies, and we need to replace outdated carriages. Somebody, a higher official in railways, was also telling me that the trunk lines in some of those stations like Chennai and Howrah also need doubling, and some sort of lack of maintenance is visible, which needs to be addressed. The eastern part of the country, of course, has always witnessed more and more railway accidents. If you see, Bengal, according to NCRB data, also accounts for the second highest number of train accidents, and the country's deadliest rail accident also happened in Bihar in 1981, when an overcrowded train fell from a bridge into the Bagmati River and we lost 800 lives. If you look at our recent past, last year in Alipurdwar, there was a similar collision and we lost about 9 lives. So this is an important, factor of concern. And lastly, we also need to invest more in R&D. There are countries in the West that use positive train control and automatic train protection, which actually help drivers make these decisions and reduce the possibility of human error. Before I wind up, let me also tell you that the budget allocated to Indian Railways was the highest last year, with Nirmala Sitharaman, Finance Minister, allocating over 2.75 lakh crore to Indian Railways, which is why more of these technologies need to be put in place faster, and non-utilization of funds needs to be addressed.
Right, Vasudha, very significant questions raised by you on the various loopholes in our railway system and the need to really modernize rail infrastructure. Thanks, Vasudha, for that. Time for a short break now, but on the other side, we'll continue to track the latest on the ground as far as this tragic rail accident in Odisha is concerned. Stay with us.